right. Perfect. And welcome to our group panel discussion. We are celebrating the launch of our next book, which is 20 Shades of Grief. So the women that are in, or the people, men and women that are in this book are sharing both their journey with grief in their own life, what they've learned along the way, and then, of course, some tips and tools and things for helping other people as they take on grief in their own way. So to start out, I'll just kind of go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves and what brought them into the book, what their chapter's about. So I will start with Ada. She was first in the room. Ada, tell us about you. Where are you? What is your focus on grief?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Ada Malave or Ada Malave. I'm a transformational grief coach, and I'm presently residing in Puerto Rico in the Caribbean Ocean. It's nice and warm. I did live in New York, so I know what it is to be cold. And yeah, what brought me into the book was the title itself, which was 20 Shades of Grief. And I deal with a lot of clients that go through the processing of grief, whether it's a loss of a loved one, their health, pets, so many other factors in loss. So that's what brought me into the book. And knowing that it was Kathy and all these beautiful people, I said, yeah, I'm in. So
Her.
thank you.
We're so glad you joined us. And Suzanne, how about you?
I'm Suzanne Jabor. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm grieving bereaved mom turned grief guide and educator. So I take everything that I've learned in the 5 years since my son died and help demystify grief for other people who are experiencing it and the people trying to support them. I do that a bunch of different ways. And I ended up joining the book because I met you, Kathy, and you were like, we should do a book about grief. And I was like, well, of course we should do a grief book because the opportunities to tell our stories and what we have done after our loss, where that has led us, and for other people who feel isolated and confused and alone to be able to grab a book. They don't have to call a friend. They don't have to feel like a burden. They don't have to be a downer. They're just going to grab a book and hear from 20 diverse people what their experiences were. And somewhere in there, they will hear something that makes them feel less alone. And so that for me was the big motivator to be in this kind of a book about grief because people need to hear a variety of stories because it's a topic we don't talk about. So we feel isolated and alone because we don't know what's
Yeah.
coming for us. So
But
that was my motivation.
nobody wants to talk about it.
No, it's too scary.
Exactly. And Alicia, how about you?
Hi, Kathy. Well, I'm grateful that we know a mutual friend. And she told me about you and connected us. And I'm just so grateful to be here. I am passionate about, like you both are, and Betsy will come on, about, just it's not just about my story, it's just about the steps. For me, I'm a Christian and how God has held me and what He has, prepared me for. And I'm pretty raw today because my mom just went to be with the Lord last week. And my aunt almost the month and the time before my mom. So I'm like, wow, because I wrote my part in the book back in May.
Yeah.
So man, I think I could add a lot more right now because it's taken me back to those that early season of grief. And but I'm just so grateful. You know, I want people to know that they can reflect, they can look back, and they can realize that they had that time with their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be enriching. They can learn to be grateful and practice gratitude and just all the things. So I love the book idea. I wrote a little paragraph in another book, and then I've done some podcasts. And I'm like both of you, people want to hear. I mean, they're struggling. They've reached out, just one-on-one, and then they hear the podcast and they're like, well, I never thought of it like that, or how are you even talking about this? And I want them to know that they can get back up again. For me, it was with the Lord. So I could get back up again. He's restored my joy. So now what am I going to do with it? Well, I need to share it with people and let them know about his goodness. So that's why I'm here, and I'm so thankful.
Perfect. I'm glad you were able to join us, and we'll let Betsy introduce herself when she's ready. And yeah, I would say, one of the main reasons that, as Suzanne mentioned, that she and I were talking and we're like, let's do a book about grief. And part of it for me too was also demonstrating how grief impacts our life in so many ways. I mean, the way that we think about first is usually loss of a loved one or, another person who's important in our life. But really, there are so many other events
Yeah.
in life that create grief that we don't give the same kind of understanding and respect. And, if you lose a job, if you get divorced, or
Yes.
there's so many things. And even, one of the things I point out in my chapter is even, say, right now with the current world situation, we are all grieving the loss of predictability, the loss of basic respect for human rights. There is a grief that comes with all of those that I think that's one of the things going on in our basic society right now, especially around North America, is that we are all grieving, but we're not naming it. We're not saying I'm grieving. We're just saying I feel horrible. I'm depressed. I'm down. I'm angry. And so I think the more we talk about grief, the more we recognize it and the more we can take those steps and follow some of these skills and tools that everyone in this book has shared. And I see Betsy has joined us. Betsy, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you are, what you do, and what your chapter's about? Don't forget to get off mute. You're still on mute, Betsy.
Yeah, I'm new at this Zoom thing. Sorry. Going too fast. Uh, I was saying that you'll have to give me the hook because I know too much about grief and trying to fit the traumatic losses that I had over my lifetime in my immediate family, for the most part, other than my first husband, who was kind of immediate family, uh, who also died tragically. How am I going to get this into 2,500 words? And early on in the process, I remember Kathy said, well, just try to pick one. I said, I can't do that. If I just write about my mother, I feel, what about my father? And what about my brother? And so I tried to fit like 3 out of 4, 5 in, depending if you count my first husband. It was like too much. But then I sat with, I mean, months went by, got busy, and luckily other people were a little late in getting their chapters in. So it gave me some time to think. And when I went back to it, just, in the last month, couple of weeks really, I said, I got to work harder to get it down. So I went through Chat GPT to make it 2,500 words from like 3,100. And it did exactly, but it took all the emotion out. It was like listing all these people's deaths, and that's not right either. So then I tried to get, well, the shorter version, but add some emotion in. And that's why I was late getting my chapter in. And I have to thank Kathy and Linda. They are so patient and so wonderful. I was afraid they were going to give up on me, wouldn't have blamed them. But I also know that I have a story to tell because of all the things I didn't ask for, but happened. And I also got my career because of my mother's untimely death. So just now at age 70, I'm starting to see how, oh my God, I've spent so much of my life grieving. We lost our mother when I was 18, younger brother and sister. Parents were divorced. Suicide runs in my family, my mother, my grandmother, biochemical depression. I have the benefit of antidepressants. So there's a lot there, right? And how am I ever going to be happy with that? And then there was my father, my brother, little brother, my first husband, and my husband now, father of my 31-year-old and grandfather of my 2-year-old granddaughter, came along and saved my life about 32 years ago. But I spent too much time in grief. And he basically said, and I do climate change work, so don't get me started on the state of the world and politics. But he said to me, he made me an ultimatum. He said, I love you more than life, but if you can't, and this was during the first Trump era when I would scream at my TV and just have fits appropriately. And then a second time, he said, if you do that again, I can't be with you. I need you to, he's 13 years older. I need you to be happy. And I thought, well, I can get divorced and be in grief the rest of my shorter life now, looking at the runway, or get happy. So that's been a challenge. And so it all is connected in my mind, and trying to get that all in a chapter was a challenge, but I'm so glad I did it. Just to wrap up, because although it was emotional and kind of difficult to relive all this, it was cathartic too. And the last note is I'm feeling very vulnerable and emotional right now because my younger brother, who was a superstar on the ski slopes, Wall Street, Hollywood, died tragically young. And seeing all the freestyle skiing in the Olympics right now, it's exactly what my brother did 45 years ago, triple backflips and all that. So, well, all this stuff happening at once. We're moving about 40 minutes north of here to be with our granddaughter and daughter and son-in-law. So a move in the middle of all this. And yes, I did move a year ago to this house. So a lot going on, but really glad I took time to do this because I wanted to get all that in a chapter, and I think I can use it for people who don't know. Just don't ask me to tell the whole story. And here's the digital version of the chapter, or go buy the book.
That's right.
Perfect. I love that. Hi, Tanya. It's good
Hi,
to have
sorry
you
I'm
join
late.
us. No, no worries. We were just doing some intro, so where you are, what you're about, what your
Oh,
chapter's
yeah.
about.
My chat. I'm in Iowa. I'm a East Coast gal who moved to Iowa 30 years ago, or 35 years ago,
Ooh, where's the
and
time
ended
go?
up staying. I had all these plans, and when I met my husband, all my plans went to hell. But I've lived here for now that long, and so I guess I'm Iowan. But I'm really from Jersey. I'm a Jersey tomato, and grew up on the beach, on Long Beach Island, and moved inland. There's no ocean here. It's very weird. I always say if I could take all the wonderful people in Iowa and put them on a beach, that'd be the best. But I've been
Well,
doing,
just stand by. Climate change is eroding our
yeah,
seashore.
exactly. This would be
Ha
the
ha
place.
ha.
Um, we have actually, I live in Coralville, which is built on Devonian era coral beds. So this used to be the ocean. So kind of late for that part, but many hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was the ocean. I've been working in healing since 1987. I was looking at my massage diploma and then decided to go to chiropractic college out here in Iowa. That's how I got here. The first chiropractic adjustment was given on Brady Street in Davenport, Iowa. So very interesting that I had this experience at the end of chiropractic college. I had a baby that was stillborn, and my husband and I went that summer. He was born in April. That summer, we went to the Mississippi Valley Blues Fest, and I had a healing experience in the tent stage with the Blind Boys of Alabama. I felt waves and waves of love flowing through me. And I went, oh, okay, so there's love for us. There's a lot of love for us. In fact, love so big, there's not a word for it. And it was a really wonderful experience. It didn't mean everything in my life was happy from then on. I still had stuff I had to go through. But I work with women who have experienced grief and have had to move on to the next thing. So they don't really get a chance to acknowledge and find out that that grief is a doorway to deeper healing. And so when we go through that, I was thinking about you, Suzanne, because I was looking at one of your posts the other day, and I was like, it's so true. There's so much we can heal from when we just will sit with it for a little bit instead of trying to avoid it and push it away. That's where people start to get into trouble. And so they get to a point in their life where like, I can't do this anymore. And so what happens? So I've been doing quantum healing techniques for 30 years. And what we do with quantum healing is we're making an opening in our consciousness to allow source to come in and do the work. And I'm doing a new modality I'm getting certified in called MAP, which stands for Make Anything Possible, which is like it's like magic, but it's not magic. It's real. And it's really working with your subconscious, which we refer to as your superconscious, because it's not sub to anything. It's doing everything right now. Like you don't know what your liver's doing. You don't have to know, but your subconscious is running it. So we refer to it as your superconscious. And it's just like I give a command to the superconscious and it does the work. So the person who I'm working with, the client, is just sitting, listening passively, and every so often we check in and see how things are going, and emotions come up, and we can clear so much in a very short amount of time. And it's wonderful. So all the techniques that I do are easy. They're just like follow these directions, do what I do, say what I say. It's very simple because healing does not have to be something that you figure out. I hear that a lot. People want to figure things out. And like, as soon as you start telling yourself you have to figure it out, that's when you should call me because there's nothing to figure out. All you have to do is call the right person and have them walk you through it. So I say, I'm not the healer, I'm the healer GPS. I tell you to go forward, turn right, close your eyes, take a breath. I'm not doing the healing, you're doing the healing. So the power is with each individual person. And when we do that kind of work, it's just a joy to help people. And they feel so much lighter, so much happier, so much more at peace. And that's what we all want. We all want to feel at peace with ourselves, with the rest of the world. And a lot of the problems that we see in our world are because people have been walking in fear and not walking in love. So we are all, as I see you all nodding, like little bobbleheads, yes. We are all people who are trying to help others walk in love. And when we do that, it's a beautiful thing. And people feel free. One thing that comes through on everybody's questionnaire when they book with me, how would it feel to release this? I would feel free. Every single one. Freedom, freedom, freedom. So
Wow.
I like to help people experience freedom.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that there are so many techniques and modalities and practices for helping
Mhm.
with grief, but most people are not aware of them at all.
They have no idea. They think, oh, time heals all wounds. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes a scab. It doesn't heal it, and it can leave a scar. So what do you want to do with that? The way I look at it is, the deepest well of tragedy is also the deepest well of blessings that can come out of that. So what do you want to do with that tragedy? Do you want to just stay stuck in that? Do you want to wallow around in that for a while? The We're supposed to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, not pitch a tent and live there. So have somebody walk with you. That's what I'm here for. To have somebody that walks with you through that so that you don't have to do it alone. I'm watching people post online. I just had an acquaintance who lost her husband of like 40 years. They're very much in love. And she posted today that she went into the room where her husband passed and put her hands on the chair that he was sitting in. And this is a big milestone. And she has people around her supporting her. So she knows what to do. And, I don't usually work with people who are in fresh grief like that. It's usually after they've gone through some things and they're like, okay, I'm getting really tired of this. I want to move forward. And they're ready to move forward and they're ready to have somebody come alongside. We don't have to do this all alone, and time will not heal the wound. You have to do something in an action. You have to take an action to be able to do that. And that's why it's so important to do healing while you're in that situation so that you can move through and find the program that I'm doing right now is called the Path to Joyful Purpose. Why not find a joyful purpose out of that tragedy? It's possible. And you all have.
Yeah,
So you know it's
exactly.
true. Yeah,
Exactly. And I love that. And it's, yeah, that this book is going to be so powerful for
it
everyone
really
that reads
is.
it. And the nice thing, the way it's broken up into every chapter is a standalone separate story. So people can feel like reading one and then they can take a break and absorb it and sit with it and not feel like,
It
oh,
could
I'm
be a
going to get to the
bathroom
next
book, one
chapter.
of those ones you pick up, right?
Yeah,
But not in a
Yeah.
bathroom. Coffee
exactly.
table, coffee table.
That's right. That's right. And one of the things too that, again, going back to the very beginning when Suzanne and I were talking about starting this book in the first place, one of the things
Mhm.
that we really talked about was the fact that in our Western culture, talking about grief at all or acknowledging that you're grieving, whether it is from the loss of a person or other things in life, is really almost taboo.
Right.
And I
It's
know
crazy.
that all of you are working on,
Yeah.
trying to bring down those
That's
barriers.
that Puritanism that started with white people coming to the Americas,
No,
right?
exactly, exactly. So maybe I'll just go around the room and just see, kind of your take on that idea and what you're doing now to help break that. And Ada, how about you? What's your take on that whole tabooness of grief?
Yeah, I wrote that also. I wrote about that in my book, Serenity After the Storm, where in the Western culture we do have taboos about um, death, grief. And, it's something so natural. You're born and you transition. Why not speak about it if we speak about everything else? And that's something that I mentioned in the book and I still feel very strong about. And when I have any particular workshops or I speak on podcasts and wherever I'm able to voice the information about grief, I bring that to light because it's so natural. And yet, we think we're going to live forever and we're not, because that's the whole rule of nature. We're going to be gone at some point. And it's just a matter of how we deal with it, prepare our family with it, prepare our friends, and even prepare ourselves for it. We know we're not going to be here forever. So in preparation, doing living wills, doing all that preparation for your family to know exactly what you need and what you want for your funeral services or that end of life situation. So that's very important to talk about and make it clear and not make it so taboo and make it more of part of a natural conversation with your family members. Yeah.
How about you, Suzanne? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think at this moment, especially in history, it's critical that we break this taboo. Like it's past time, because what I see happening right now with all the isolation and the othering and the fear and the anger that's being expressed, I see so clearly, I can draw a line for me so clearly back to all the denial that happened during COVID, where the whole conversation that was happening in the collective was about getting back to normal and not about the intense amount of grief that we were all feeling for all of the things that we've talked about today, whether you lost loved ones, which many people did, or it was your sense of normal, or you lost a vacation, or your child lost their graduation, or whatever. Like we lost so much in that period, and we never took the time as a collective to talk about it.
Right.
So I think it's beyond past time, which is why I can feel myself getting up on my soapbox, and I know you guys all get it. And part of what makes me so passionate about it is we're losing and missing out on one of the most powerful times for connection. And instead of connection, we're creating isolation. And if we can't break down that taboo and talk about it and share what's true for us the same way we do, like I love what you're saying about, there's death or there's birth and then there's death. If you think about the difference between what happens in your group of friends, your circle of people, when you tell everyone you're pregnant, compared to when you tell everyone somebody died, that's the problem. The fact that we don't respond with the same amount of care and attention, we don't know what to say, we don't share our stories, we don't say, oh, I was astonished when I was visibly pregnant, how many people were very determined to tell me their horrifying birth stories.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
And I didn't understand it until I was in the 34th hour of labor. And I'm very grateful that women I knew and trusted and thought were intelligent had chosen to do this again. So it must be worth it. There must be an end. But we're not having that richness of conversation around the loss of loved ones, never mind in our raw individualism culture where we don't even want to acknowledge your emotions around the loss of a job or a home or an opportunity or a dream or a partner or a friend that hasn't died. Those losses are the place to practice because this is new skills for all of us.
Right.
Exactly.
As a collective, like everyone who's on this call has this skill set. Come find us. But most people don't. But those are rich places for us to practice because someone like me in that earliest days, that acute phase of grief, a grieving mother grieving out loud from the sudden loss of a child, I am not a good first assignment. We need to practice these new skills. We need to practice. What if we broke the taboo around the loss of a job? And we practiced having that conversation before we say, well, they're lost. Let's go on Indeed, find you the next thing. I'll help you with your resume. Before that, what if we said, well, I bet you're having a bunch of big feelings about that because I know that was really a part of your identity and you really liked the people there and you'd been there for a long time. Whatever the truth is, if you want to talk about those big feelings, I can do that for you. I can do that with you. I'm here to listen. And if you're not the kind of person that can do that, don't offer that. If you're not the kind of person that can sit with those big, messy emotions, you're the one that gets to come in and go, great, let's write the resume. Let's get on Indeed. Let's do all the things. we need both skill sets and we need to get a bajillion times better at them if we're going to find our way back from this crevasse we are all staring at.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
agree. Alicia, how about you? What are your thoughts about breaking that silence?
Yeah, Suzanne, I'm sorry about your son. So we do have some things in common. And Betsy, you lost your brother, I think, young. So, you know, sometimes it's not the natural order of things. Like my mom lived 81 years, and we expected it. We rejoiced at her service. It's just all different. And I've learned to walk that out too. One thing I've learned, well, back to your normal, and I always go back to this. One of my favorite Bible teachers said, the only thing normal is a setting on your dryer. So if you can remember that, I always go, yeah,
Yep.
we're not in the normal here. But anyway, but the beautiful thing about it is that we can all come together and we can learn what fed us in those early stages of grief. It wasn't, well, what happened? No, that didn't feed me. That just bad. But then with my mom, somebody said something to me and it just took me back because I was in church last night. How you doing? I mean, they loved my mom. And how you doing? Doing all right? All these hugs. I mean, it was emotional. I was exhausted when I left. But the day before, I was at my Bible study, and a friend of mine, she came up and she said, Alicia, how's your heart? That was unbelievable. Nobody's ever asked me, how's your heart? And that took it past surface level to really seeing where I was. And I was able to answer her. I said, my heart is settled. She's good, but my mind, my will, and my emotions are still going. And so she knew more where I was, how to pray for me. I just think it's brilliant what you guys are doing, and we're walking this out together. Because, one thing I too have learned, and I've tried to share this with people, and I know we're going to have different chapters and there's different losses, but loss is loss when you're in it. We can't judge. There was one thing that people would try to tell me, oh, I don't even want to tell you this or want to share this with you because you've been through the worst loss imaginable. And I'm like, stop comparing,
Yeah.
Loss is loss when you're in it. So I feel like we can have a word for somebody no matter where they are in their loss, to know that they're seen and heard and loved, and their joy can come back and be restored. So that's some things I've learned, and I'm passionate about helping people see that.
Perfect. Betsy, how about you? Any thoughts about
Filling
the
notes so I can stay on track, because everything you said resonates and reminds me of this. Happens when you're 70 and have had 5 deep grief experiences, but I think it's all relevant to everything that's been said. So bear with me. I'll try to talk fast. First of all, closure. People say closure. Yeah, there is closure when you die. Otherwise, that person is with you. And hopefully, if we've been able to, if I can find a way to have my daughter and granddaughter someday know who my mother was, who my father was, who my brother was before he had a 14-year manic breakdown, then it will live on, and that's what makes me sad, because most people I know in my world right now didn't know my mother, and those who did I'm very close to. And I just mentioned my brother in the Olympics, and I just have to show you, this is a picture I just found of my brother in better days and my daughter, and my granddaughter looks just like that. And so all these things are coming together. You talked about, someone mentioned COVID. You guys may remember people who were brainwashed would be dying in the hospital on their deathbed of COVID, and they wouldn't acknowledge they had COVID. Like, that's what this crazy political ideology, talk about denial, right, has done. And what you said, Suzanne, about we were all hoping, those of us who are sensitive and forward thinking and care about a lot in this world, that COVID experience would make us more close. In fact, it sadly did the opposite, partly because of technology, partly because politics got so dysfunctional. And, crisis is a terrible thing to waste, whether it's a pandemic or climate collapse. And that's what gets me going every day. Like, this is so insane. And just on the way home, Trump was quoted, because they just rolled back a huge environmental regulation and endangerment finding, it's called. I won't go into that, but the reporter on CNN thankfully said, well, what about the connection between climate change and pollution and public health? He said, there's no connection. It's a hoax. And I almost drove off the freeway. This is not surprising from him, but this is what's fueling me to go bigger with my web, my YouTube's program. Anyway, the irony, this is kind of funny. I'm in huge denial about death, which sounds like ironic, right? But because of all the trauma around death, I can talk about the people, but I can't talk about my own death. I mean, I can't. And how ironic, right? So we all have our areas of denial. And something funny last night, we were brushing our teeth in the bathroom and my husband said, we're buying this house. We really should get our, will updated and trust, because he's got two grown sons and we have one together and now a granddaughter. I stopped and I said, Alan, what makes you think we're going to die? But with a really serious face. And he spit his toothpaste out. Just like sometimes, yeah, but you've had all these serious conversations. Why are you assuming we're going to die? He laughed. And he knows that for me, that's kind of like what I've told myself. We're going to be the first ones. I'm going to be the first one to live forever. So me mocking people who are in denial about what's happening with our environment, just to show we're all human, right? And what I wanted to say is in writing this chapter, one of the things that reminded me is, oh my God, I survived that. I can't believe how I survived it somehow without turning to drugs, maybe a little bit, but I guess, I don't know. I got through all these and it was kind of in succession from age 16 when my boyfriend died to my brother 10 years ago. And then you feel like and one therapist told me, be your own mother, like pat yourself on the back, Betsy, look what you have been through.
Be kind to yourself.
That's really what it's about, self-love. If I could go back and tell her, you're going to be okay. Okay, sorry. Last thing is the magic of connecting with people. I didn't necessarily believe in reincarnation or know if I did. 3 major life things have happened in my life that could not have happened a million times against the odds. How I got pregnant, knew I was having a daughter named after my mother. How I met my husband, the keeper husband, impossible odds. And then how we just found finally the right home for us because we've been moving a lot. A fluke. We weren't even looking. And it popped up on my phone 3 weeks ago. We were in escrow 3 days later. We moved quickly. And I keep every time I pass a little table with a picture of my mother, I ended my chapter with this: mother, father, brother. I if I have a moment, I touch their face and I kiss it. And now I'm saying thank you. I really think they've been protecting me. Sorry. I see it's a little close with everything with the Olympics and this chapter and
You don't have to apologize for having emotion, Betsy. That's normal.
Right. Not here. You're right. But I don't know how we can convey, because it is kind of personal and it gets, I guess, into one's religion and spirituality. But it's taken this long. I was 18 when our mother died. I'm 70. And just in the last couple of years, I said, no, they are watching out for me, and I feel it. And I can't explain it, but I want to share it with people who are going through hell. And I don't know if maybe that'll be the next book, is how we got in touch with her, how that examples of that's not so woo-woo. It's actually real. And it made me believe in God. It really did, or some kind of higher power. Anyway, I said I had too much to say and I wasn't lying.
Well, thank you for sharing all of
Betsy,
that.
I like have experienced that. I can tag on that, especially trying to take care of my mom the past year and a half in guardianship. I would just pick up my grandparents' picture, my dad, and just say, look, like I'm doing my best here. And I would cry, and my son, but as a believer, and I base my truth on the Bible, it says that God has all these cloud of witnesses waiting on us to get there, but they're praying for us. So those are our family that are there and our friends. And so I firmly believe that there's a thin veil between heaven and earth, and that they know, and there's validation. Like I call them kisses from heaven, whatever people want to call them, God encounters. Yeah, I've had those too. And it's just like, thank you, God. Thank you that you allowed me to feel their presence or to whatever it is. But we're going to have those triggers. Lord knows I've been triggered now for the past week. And it is the trigger of death, going back there again. And I told my husband, I said, and my daughter, I said, I'm not going back like I did and get sick and not acknowledge it and not deal with just the celebration of his life. I have to deal with the death too. I didn't deal with that. And I think that's why I got pretty sick. So,
That's what
yeah,
I help with, getting rid of those triggers so you don't have to go through that anymore. I just want to
yeah,
say something about the technology that we have, and the reason why we went through COVID was to help us understand that we need to increase our spiritual intelligence, just like we increase our artificial intelligence. And that's really what we're all about here is is increasing that spiritual intelligence to know that death is maybe feels final, but remember that you don't die until the last person says your name for the last time.
Mhm.
Matter can't be created or destroyed, it can only change shape.
Mhm.
So where do we go when the body is failed? What happens to us? My belief and the way I think about it, because I can't prove it, obviously, but what I think is that we're all separated while we're here. But after we die, we don't have to be separated. There is no separation. So I can think a thought and Suzanne can hear it. And Kathy can think a thought and we can all hear it. We can all get it because we're not separated by this physical form anymore. And to me, that's like drops of water outside the ocean, and we go back to the ocean after we die, after our bodies are done. And,
Yeah.
having a baby die inside you will make you very philosophical. It will be, and you're supposed to be doing healing. It will make you very philosophical. And one of the things that we had to do when our baby died was tell the two little girls that were waiting for their new brother what happened. So how do you explain that to a 5 and a 6-year-old? You say, people die. We're all going to do it. Can't be that bad. Everybody does it. And some people die yeah, some people die when they're old. Some people die when they're young. Some people die because they're sick. Some
Writing
people
that
die
down.
because of an accident. Everybody's going to do it.
Can't
Everybody.
be that bad. Can't be that bad because everyone does it. That's funny.
Can't be that bad. How bad can it be? So we all go through it. It's not something to feel guilty about or shameful about. It's just a thing that happens. And so we can honor him by giving him a memorial service, and that's how we can grieve too, and it'll help us move through this time. So that kind of ritual is really important, and I know that a lot of people, especially during COVID, didn't have that ritual, so we need to do it. They need to have that ritual. It doesn't matter if it was 6 years ago or 7 years ago or 25 years ago. It does not matter. Having that ritual is really important because it marks it. It gives you a finite place to say, this is where I honored this person. And it helps us to have ritual in certain areas. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing a ritual for every little thing that happens, but when we have loss, whether it's your best friend moving away when you're a kid, or
Yeah.
a loss of a job, or divorce, or someone dying, it's all the same feeling of grief and loss. And one of the things I like to remind people is that grief is the imprint of where love has been.
Right.
So honor the love that was there. Honor that. Because it doesn't really matter what your philosophy of life is. It matters what your philosophy is afterlife, right? People say, I know Stephen Colbert does the Colbert questionnaire, and he asks people in that questionnaire, what do you think happens when we die? And people give all kinds of answers. But my answer to that is we go back to the ocean of all of us together with no separation in love, and we just get to exist there. And whatever we
Yes.
choose after that, who knows?
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
it's easy. It's easier to think of it like that for
Yes.
me.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad we were able to bring you all together for sharing your experience and all of your wisdom. And I know everyone's going to love the book, and definitely
Yeah.
we're encouraging everyone to go get the book when it comes
Oh,
out. So March 3rd is the big day that we're launching the book. So please get your copy and yes, learn from all of the amazing people who have shared their stories and their wisdom in that book. And thank you all for joining us today. And this has been wonderful. So thank you.
thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Yes. Y'all have a
Thank
blessed
you.
day.
Can't
Thank
wait to
you.
read everybody's chapters.
No.
Yes.